I now have the real privilege and honor of introducing our moderator for today's keynote, Reverend Sharon White-Harrigan. Sharon is the Executive Director of the Women's Community Justice Association, a gender-specific, trauma-informed advocacy for justice agency that uplifts and amplifies the voices of women who are experts through their life experiences and efforts. Previously, Sharon was the Director of a temporary residence at the Women's Prison Association. She's worked in a range of direct service fields and advocacy efforts surrounding reentry, domestic violence, homelessness, mental health, and substance abuse. She was also a leader in passing New York's Domestic Violence Survivors Justice Act in 2019. Sharon's a minister, motivational speaker, adjunct lecturer, consultant, and therapist. In her work, Sharon draws upon her expertise as a licensed social worker, survivor of violence, and survivor of 11 years of incarceration. She holds a master's degree in social work from Lehman College and a bachelor's degree in social work and criminal justice from CUNY, where she was a Thomas W. Smith Fellow, and she's the recipient of numerous awards and honors. Thank you so much for joining us today, Sharon.
Well, thank you so much for having me. Well, welcome everybody, and it's definitely an honor and a privilege to be here today with you all, and we have some good things to talk about and some real important issues to put at the table. And so it is my honor and my privilege to be able to talk about this esteemed young man, our brother Daryl, in all of the work that he has been doing. And so, with my privilege and honor, on June 10th, 2010, Daryl McGraw walked out of a Connecticut prison equipped with nothing more than his GED and 6 composition notebooks filled with what he called his 5-year plan to a successful community reentry. Mr. McGraw hit the ground running, and in a short period of time, he received a bachelor's degree in human services and a master's degree in organizational management and leadership, both from Springfield College. Mr. McGraw has already accomplished more in his life than many has done in his lifetime. So today, Daryl is a certified addictions counselor, recovery support specialist, and criminal justice professional. Mr. McGraw has over 10 years of lived experience and expertise in urban trauma, addiction recovery, and community reintegration. Daryl's personal journey through addiction and incarceration has prepared him to be a voice and advocate for those who still find themselves caught in the vicious cycles of addiction and recidivism. He is considered an expert in the field of criminal justice reform. Hello. Daryl presents at conferences nationally and internationally and provides technical assistance to universities, law enforcement agencies, legislators, and behavioral health and addiction treatment facilities. As a leadership consultant, he works in policy development, contract management, and project coordination, as well as collaborates with grassroots peer advocacy agencies and departments of corrections. In 2014, he was hired as a program director for the Yale University Department of Psychiatry, where he was contracted to serve as director of the Office of Recovery Community Affairs for the state of Connecticut Department of Mental Health and Addiction Services. All right. In 2018, Mr. McGraw went on to form his own organization called Formally Inc., Connecticut's first criminal justice consultant agency, predominantly staffed by formerly incarcerated individuals. And in 2019, Daryl was appointed the co-chair of Connecticut's Police Transparency and Accountability Task Force. In this role, he connects communities and law enforcement and encourages the hard conversations that lead to legislative change in police transparency and accountability in his state. Mr. McGraw also works part-time for the Institute for Municipal Policy and Research at Central Connecticut State University as a senior reentry consultant, working to better the reentry process for returning citizens in Connecticut. In 2020, Mr. McGraw was inducted into the Connecticut Hall of Change for his tireless advocacy for criminal justice reform and his tireless commitment to restorative justice and the welfare of formerly incarcerated people. And in 2021, Mr. McGraw joined forces with C4 Innovations as the senior manager of racial justice and equity. He inspires cultural competency and challenges organizations to move away from the status quo. He also sits on several boards involving reentry and criminal justice reform in Connecticut. And so it is my esteem, honor, and pleasure to introduce this great steward in the movement, our brother, Daryl McGraw.
Yeah. Oh, man. We got to do this on the road. We got to take this thing on the road, right? I really appreciate that introduction. I was like, man, I want to meet this brother, man. He sounds real good. Super proud. Thank you so much, Sharon. Thank you for the consortium for having me. I want to say thank you. I got a short amount of time. I'm going to share my slides. For those of you that have never met me before, I'm a different type of presenter. So I like to see the chat box going. I like to keep people busy. So just say hello, just shout us out. Let me know where you're from. You got a Q&A. We're going to have a Q&A right after. So I'm excited for this conversation. Let me get my screen up. See if I can do this right. One shot. Oh, that wasn't the shot that I wanted. Sorry. 1 second. Here we go. All right. There we go. Thumbs up if you can see that. Those that can put their thumb up, give me a thumbs up. Let me know that the screen, you can see my screen. This is how we communicate through Zoom. I appreciate you. So topic that I'm going to talk about today, I'm going to try to, if I'm moving too fast, I apologize. I want to get this to, I'm excited to get to the chat. I'm leading off with housing is not a home. And I know many of you that do this work already know where I'm going with this. Housing is not a home. So a lot of times we work in these organizations that are responsible for housing people. But my question today to all of you is, when you think of home, and please jump right in the chat box, let's get this thing started. Silence, we don't, this is not, my presentations are never spectator sports, right? So feel free to jump right in the chat. So when you think of a home, what comes to mind? When you think of home, what comes to mind? Many of you left home today, right? What comes to mind? What thoughts come to mind when you think of home, right? I want you to think about that, because a lot of times we in this business or in the housing business, a lot of times people are for one reason or another responsible for housing, but they don't look at, it's one thing to house a person. And we all know, if we can agree, that housing does not make a home, right? Housing is just putting somebody in a place that doesn't make it home. So how do we, moving forward from this day forward, how do we make sure that we are providing people with not just a place to stay, but the supports to maintain that place? I'm hoping y'all ready for this conversation. When I grew up here. This was my home. I lived in an apartment building, and interesting enough, I was thinking about it when I was putting these slides together. about living in an apartment building, or the projects as some people would call it, right? So this was 12 floors and 120 families, right? An interesting thing in this particular building, this is from the west side of Stanford. In this particular building, I'm going to say this: 12 floors, 120 families, and only 3 dads in that whole building. So understand where this culture of, like, I had to learn a lot of stuff, but I didn't have a lot of male role models at the time when growing up in this building. And interesting enough, everyone that I knew growing up, their home wasn't an apartment building. So when you're working with people, understanding and you're housing them, you got to understand where they're coming from. Where did they come from? What's the history? What their expectation is, and what housing is. If you never grew up in an apartment, you don't know the love that comes within these cultures of apartment buildings. Moving forward, when you're doing this work, I always wanted everybody, whether you live in an apartment or you live in a house, wherever at the end of the day, our physiological needs are the same. Our physiological needs are the same: food, water, warmth, rest, right? People want to feel safe. They also want to feel like belonging, right? They want relationships and friends. And I think about many times when it was so important for us to house somebody, get them housed, get them things. But a lot of times this wasn't put in. We would just put them where either they could afford the rent. Like my mom, she could only afford us living in that apartment building. So that whatever came with that was what it was, right? So there's belongingness and love and the esteem needs. I bring it right back to the basics of Maslow's theories, right? And self-actualization. A lot of times, men, if nothing else, as we move forward on this journey, especially when we're talking about housing, and you guys are going to have the after Riker's conversation. I'm excited for that panel. But what's next? Are we making sure that when people get out, that their physiological needs are being met? Are they safe? Are they going to be able to move up to a point of self-actualization? If we're going to be doing this work, we really need to be taking that into consideration. And I'd be remiss if I'm not talking about the social determinants of health, right? A lot of times, working with people across the country, and I work with organizations, and people are like, oh, well, Daryl, we're doing this great work. We house 50 people, and they had these programs like Housing First. So we got 50 people housed, but they were put in these places without a lot of other considerations, right? Where we're looking at, the needs, their social needs, the economics, right? The neighborhoods, their health issues. This is something that we're going to be talking about. That next panel is going to be talking about the health care of individuals and what their needs are going to be, man. I'm hoping you guys are hearing what I'm saying. I want to, give me some thumbs up. Let me know you hear me. I see that chat box popping up. Feel free to keep the chat box hot. I like keeping harmony and the team working. So I'm going to keep moving. So when we're talking about those social determinants of health, my friends, we got to be talking about, I just wanted to peel that onion back just a little further in case you weren't familiar, right? We're talking about the economics, employment, employment, income, debt, medical bills, all these different things, housing, transportation, the things that you as an employee, as a successful person in this field that's working in this field, are you trying to make sure that these needs are met for the individuals that are transitioning out of incarceration? Because a lot of times we're just trying to get them out. Well, we did the best that we could. Now that ain't good enough no more. That's not what we're doing. We want to make sure that why not? I want for my brother what I would want for myself. So I want to make sure that he has a safe housing, that he has access to better education, that these neighborhoods, and if those places don't exist, then that's the work that we need to be working on. That's the work that we need to be looking at. Food insecurities, right? And man, we can't say enough about the social environment. I'm a person in long-term recovery, which means I haven't used a substance since May 7, 2007. So for me, my social circle has changed, right? Now I'm looking for people that are like me, that are in recovery, that don't drink, don't smoke, but they still need to live, right? They still need to live. We're going to talk a little bit about trauma if I get the minute to. We're going to talk about that too, because and how do we embrace are people who have been survivors like myself of trauma. Let me know I'm doing all right, man. Give me thumbs up. Let me know my screen's not frozen. Let me know that you guys can hear me. I love the analogies. Okay, I see you. Big thank you, appreciate you. So moving forward, right? Understanding the impacts. I had to go here. If we're talking about housing, we're talking about this. We're going to talk about housing. We're going to talk about health. We're going to talk about transition from incarceration. Then we need to understand the impacts of systemic racism on BIPOC communities. I don't know what y'all thought, but if you brought me here, I'm going to tell the truth, man. That's one of the things that we're going to stand on truth today. And I really appreciate the consortium for bringing me here to be able to speak some truth into this work as we're moving forward, right? So understanding these impacts, understanding the wealth gap. Do we understand the wealth gap? Do we understand that, here, just give me a second. Let me move this out the way. That understanding that we'll just say the difference between a white adult is seven times the wealth difference between black from a black person with a medium income and a college education. And 3.9% for our Latinx people. That's the gap. That's the widening of the gap. So we also understand how money plays into this, right? If I got money, I can live in a better neighborhood, right? I live in a better neighborhood, I got better schools, and I have better opportunities. But if we're living in these poverty-stricken environments, how do we provide better healthcare? How do we make sure that these individuals are supported? How do we support that bridge? And then, man, I got to be talking about mass incarceration because I'm a survivor of mass incarceration and the crack epidemic, right? So I was one of those people that, 1 in 3 black males that was incarcerated. I was there, and I know my friends in New York. I know y'all. I'm watching y'all. I'm from Connecticut, but I love New York, and I know that you know what I'm talking about. And then, unequal housing, where we're putting people, where are we putting people? Where are people going? And understanding the unequal housing opportunities, right? A lot of times when I talk to people who are in the business of housing individuals, right? Are we making sure, the choices that they have based on the financial situations, right? It's difficult to put people in really good housing, but how do we, if we start there, is there a plan to hopefully transition them? I see that chat box going further and further. So I want to make sure, and when we're doing this work, I know when we're talking about having this presentation, when we're doing this work, those of you, I like to always throw my picture in there and show you that I had hair at one time. My kids didn't believe I had hair, but that was me incarcerated. I spent 10 years of my life cycling in and out of the incarceration system, right? So now I'm on this side of the fence. And what's important is I appreciate the consortium once again for bringing me to the table, because when you bring people like me to the table with lived experience, we're able to speak to our lived experience. We're able to speak to the gaps and challenges that we had when it was time for us to transition back into the community. And for those that don't know, these are some of the gaps that happen. They just keep coming, man. They just keep coming, right? Substance use, no transportation, spiritually depleted. These are the things that we need to consider when we talking about brothers coming home from Rikers, Sing Sing, wherever they're coming from. They're coming home with these challenges, and we need to be able to recognize them. In order for us to support them, we need to be able to know what the challenges are, whether it be lack of interview clothes, something simple as that. We collect suits in my neighborhood, so when you transition out and you need an interview suit, we got you. So what are we doing? It's not just housing, my friends, it's housing supports. Man, I'm getting excited. Y'all shouldn't have brought me here, man. I'm getting warmed up now. All right, man, Sister Sharon, you might have to pull me off the stage like the Apollo. I'm telling you. So I want to go right into this because I only got a little bit of time. So I want to make sure I hit all these points for you. See, these systems, right? In order for us to really understand what people need, we got to move away from the traditional system. And what do I mean by that? I mean, let me tell you, it's easy for us to talk about the drugs, the alcohol, and the behavior addictions. That's easy stuff. That's easy breezy. We're going to put you in a program. We're going to get you some MAT, medicated assisted treatment. We're going to send you to AA. We're going to put you in these groups. But wait a minute. That's just a Band-Aid. if we really want to get into this work, if we really trying to help people, if we really trying to transition, then we need to focus on racism, homophobia, religious persecution, the limited resources, unsafe communities. Can I say that again? Unsafe communities. What about the social determinants of health? Oh yeah, we talked about that earlier, right? Do I need to go back? No, y'all know what I'm talking about. We'll share the slides with you later, just in case you forgot, right? And intergenerational trauma, man, we can't speak enough about the trauma, right? Because when we start to talk about trauma and the oppression and poverty, right, these are all the things that need to be considered when we're talking about housing, transition, working with people, working with these individuals in disenfranchised communities. See, these communities exist because we're not really, organizations are willing to do the surface level drugs, alcohol, and behavior addictions, but they're not willing to dig deep enough, right? So if we start to dig deep enough, then we'll start to address these unsafe communities and limited resources and social determinants of health. And when we do so, my friends, when we do so, you'll start to hear things differently, because right now in the work that we're doing currently you hear people walk through the door saying, there's something wrong with me. I'm different. I'm alone. I'm beyond powerless. Come on, man. Y'all know what I'm talking about. These are things that people feel every single day. And what it is because the programs that we currently have or that we're offering them are not willing to do the deep work, do the deep dive. And that deep dive is addressing these issues, limited resources, poverty, intergenerational trauma. That's the real work. And the organizations that I work with, and when you bring people with lived experience to the table, then they're going to talk about how it felt when they walked through your doors. And so what it took for them to be empowered. Ask me. You talk about evidence-based practices, ask me. I'm your best evidence-based practice right here. I'm telling you, I can tell you how I transitioned from the projects, from a drug user, from a drug dealer, from an inmate to a homeowner and a business owner. Just ask me. I'm trying to tell you, this is the work that we do. If you just ask the right questions for so long, and I'll just say this, for so long, people have always said to me, what's wrong with you? What's wrong with you? But nobody ever asked the right question, what happened to you? Because if you had asked me what happened to me, I would have told you about the projects and the violence that I witnessed and the being a latchkey kid at 6 years old. I would have told you about all the things that happened to me, man. Man, I know my time is getting short. I'm trying to bring y'all somewhere. I'm hoping y'all understanding what I'm saying. If you are, blow that chat box up and tell them I feel you, I hear you. Let's keep it moving. Let's go. All right. So I'm going to do a quick post check real quick. See, the post check is this. I just gave you a little bit of, what we like to call, like when you walk in the mall and they give you that little piece of barbecue beef. If you're on a toothpick and you try it, you're like, oh man, this is really good. See, this is what that was today. We can get deeper into this. The consortium will bring me back and we can really get deep into this and really get into this work. But today you just got a little taste of where we really need to go, what we really need to do to really make a change in these systems. So this is the post check, is where are you individually doing this work, but where is your organization doing this work? Are they ready to take the deep dive? Are they really ready to peel the onion back? Are they ready to do that work? Man, I want to know. We're about to do a Q&A. We're about to get the questions, get your questions ready, get your comments ready. We're going into the Q&A in a few minutes. I want to hear from you. But if we are ready to do this work, then the first place we need to start, right off the rip, man, is policies and practices, right? Because when you go back at work today, I want you to look at your policies and practices and ask yourself, ask the leadership, who's benefiting, who's being harmed, who's being left out, and where those will be when the most, like, we need to be asking the question, most impacted, who's going to be impacted by this policy? Who, like, oh, he can't live there because he got a criminal record. Oh man, y'all know what I'm talking about. Man, I think I came in the wrong room. Y'all know what I'm talking about? See, I can't go to federal housing because I got a criminal record, or I can't do this. So, right, automatically separations of families. I can't be back with my family because I got arrested, but I got arrested because of the poverty and I didn't want to survive. I'm trying to survive. I'm not trying to, man, we want people to move to thriving, right? So understand something. I'm just trying to survive. And now I can't go based off of my actions, either whether present or past. I can't go back and be a dad. I can't go back and be a community member because of the policies and procedures that are set up from government funding, but the government just had me locked up. And now all of a sudden now I can't get all these things based off of an action, and I'm trying to do better. You told me I could do better, but not, the system is not set up for me to do better, man. And I could keep y'all all day, man. I tell you, this is where I like to go. So we need to really be thinking about policies and practices, my friends, and definitely moving towards the next steps and making sure that when we're hitting these next steps, policies, practices, and you can't even talk about policies and practices if people with lived experience, people like myself who have successfully transitioned out of the correctional system, moved from using substances, now we're sitting at tables helping policies be made, because a lot of times these policies are being made and procedures are being made by individuals who do not have the lived experience that you or I have. So we cannot continue to do business like this, because who does it serve? Who are we serving? Man, if we're not taking that deep dive, then we're not doing it. And I'm gonna close with this right here. I always talk about the pebbles and the boulders when I'm working with people that are incarcerated. See, the pebbles and the boulders, understand the boulders are the things that we can see. It's the pebbles that trip us up, the things that we didn't think about. And a lot of times, if you don't have people like myself and others a part of the conversations of this lived experience and bringing their knowledge and their wealth and their experiences to the table, then these are the pebbles, and these are the pebbles that are going to trip you up all the time. And we're going to continue to see high recidivism rates in this country, 70%. You know, there's only one business in the world that could fail at a 70% rate and still do business. The correctional system. The criminal justice system is the only system that can fail at 70%. People keep cycling in and out. And then what do? They blame the individual. They blame the individual for coming back to jail. Well, we failed. The system failed the individual by not properly setting them up. Oh, you lost your housing in 60 days. You did not prepare that individual who has never had a house to properly prepare them. So we need to do better. I'm here all day, every day, man, ready to, God has blessed me and put me in a space that I could share my lived experience as a tool to guide others out of darkness, because I believe that we are on the modern day Underground Railroad, and this is the work that we have chosen to do. I'm going to stop right there. Thank you. Yeah.
You have more time if you want to.
No, I'm good.
Have a couple questions. You good? Okay,
I'm good
Sharon,
right
you
now.
want to come on back?
Well, all I can say is let's show our brother Daryl some love.
Let's go.
I don't know about y'all, but I am excited. I'm about to go roll in the snow to get into the communities to do this good work, because I can't even express just how not only how you just really captivated us with your presentation, but how you put it together. And so there is some questions that is out there for you, Daryl. And I just have to tell you, brother, I am excited and so pleased to be in community with you today. Absolutely. So the first question is coming from Allison Jordan. And she said, Daryl, can you please address the community carceral systems of parole and probation and the impact on the communities?
Yeah, well, and that's a great question. And, I really appreciate that question. And I'm glad that we saved a little bit more time to dive into some of these questions. And, so we have, and, I can only speak from my experience, and feel free, somebody else could jump in. Understanding that parole and probation, there's an expectation, right? And anytime we talk about expectation, we're talking about resentments waiting to happen, right? So the expectation is that the parole and the probation officer is going to help this individual transition back into the community. that's a falsehood, because that's not their job. Their job is really to keep you more so focused on safety of the community and making sure you're doing the right thing. So a lot of times people believe, and I know my mother believed, that the probation officer can help me get a job. The probation officer or parole is going to help you get a job. Their focus is making sure that you stay in line. And a lot of times, and until we start working with them, those organizations in a different perspective, it will always be a carceral system, and therefore the community. So I always believe in CSI, and I know many of you are going to think of I know many of you are thinking of crime scene investigators, but it's really community, systems, and individuals. The community has its role, right? We need to be able to receive individuals and provide supports for them. The system has its role. It needs to prepare individuals and have things set up for individuals that are incarcerated, learning how to pay bills, all these different, they need to prepare the individual. And then the individual has skin in the game to make sure that they're ready for when they come back out. So these systems that are set up, they're not, when they come out, parole and probation is in the community, but they're not a part of the community. They're almost like a separate silo. So they're not connected to the faith-based organizations. They're not connected to the recovery community. They are a whole separate entity, yet they're supposed to or thought of as a community service provider, and they are not. I hope that makes sense.
Well, it definitely does make sense. All right, so another question, and this is from Sergio E. Matos.
Sergio, what's good?
I hope I pronounced his last name right. I'm sorry if I didn't. He said, can you address the differences between service provision versus empowerment approaches? Give a man a fish and he eats for one day, or, or you could teach a man to fish. And I just have to say this, that is not just men that eat, okay, brother. So women also eat. So I just want to share that. I know that that's how the saying go, but we have to be a little more inclusive here. But
no doubt. We love our lioness too, man. We got the lions.
That's right.
And the lioness.
Okay. All right.
The lioness is the hunter. We got you. So yeah, I appreciate you. Want to elaborate a little bit more? Or you want me to jump in on Sergio's question?
No, go ahead and jump in.
No, I really appreciate what Sergio is saying. That there is a big difference, and we need to be able to distinguish the difference between providing housing. I'm going to put you in this house, or I'm going to show you how to live. There's a difference, and think about it. If you don't know that difference, bring it back to your own family or your children. How do you provide for them versus when you come to work? You got your iPhone 15, you got your red bottom shoes and your Kate Spade bag, and all of a sudden you're saving the world. But in reality, we're asking you to help these individuals transition, help them get to a sim. I don't believe in survival. I believe in thriving. So I don't believe that we're just helping somebody, like you said, giving them a fish, man. Let's teach them to fish. When we work with people and they say, well, I want to be like you, I want you to be better than me. I want you to be better than me. We all should be, those of us that are in a service provision role, we should be trying to work ourselves out of jobs. We should be saying, you know what, I want it, so I need to find another job, right? Instead of being so secure and people being homeless or addicted to substances or needing you, we should be in a position to say, yo, I don't want this kind of job anymore. I want to find another career because we did the work so well that this work is no longer needed.
I just want to add to that a little bit, Brother Daryl, and just saying, what does help really look like, right? Because not all help is help. Help can be harmful, even if, unintentionally. And I think that also that people, if they start looking at the community that they are, I'm going to put in quotes, helping, and if you look at them as people who deserve versus people who need, then we might have a different outcome in a lot of things.
And some of that might be even on our own fault because of how the terminology. Right? Understand that we got to move away from help and say we're assisting. Let me assist you because help makes a lot of us we're gonna talk about. Can I talk about men for a minute? Can I talk
That's
about brothers?
go ahead, brother.
Like if you start to talk about helping me, then I feel like I might be helpless, right? But if you say, "No, let me assist you with that. Let me assist you with this transition process. Let me assist you." Stop, because see, and then even the terminology for the individual that may be thinking you're helping, there's a hierarchy in that term. When we get to assisting, I'm here to assist, then we're on the same level. I'm just trying to help you. I'm just trying to assist you with this, right?
Or support.
Or support, 100%. Because sometimes even for the worker, when you're in a position of help, they think, oh yeah, well, I had to help Sharon out the other day. No, I was assisting Sharon with a little thing, a little project, because that sounds mutual. That sounds like we did this together. The second that I get into this role, if we believe in person-centered and we believe that the individual knows what's best for them, then let's get to assisting. Let's go. You know what I'm talking about, Sue. I see you, Sergio. I see you, Stacy. I see you. Let's go.
I have a question for you, and I'm going to let me go to the audience first, and then I have one for you.
Okay.
And this one is by someone anonymous. In New York City, we have organizations that specifically work with folks impacted by incarceration, but all of us are working with the reentry population. What can direct care workers do to understand and support the needs of justice impacted clients and patients?
Well, I'm gonna toot my own horn. I specialize and I do trainings across the country in forensic peer support, right? So I believe that, individuals need to be trained to work with individuals that are justice involved. And we use the term justice involved because not everybody did time. So when you talk about reentry, sometimes you might have a reentry program. I don't sign up because I never re-entered, right? I've never been in reentry. So therefore, I end up in, so we talk about justice involved, meaning like an individual that may have had a DUI or they was on probation. So if anybody that's justice involved, then they should be eligible for these services. But then we also it's important that individuals that work with justice involved individuals understand how, number one, the criminal justice system is broken and it breaks people. Right. So we need to understand what that's like. You can't provide this service. The level of service some of us need to be provided by experts. Let's go, man. Now you on mute. You was off mute. Come on, man.
Please excuse me. I thought I was muted before.
You wasn't. We heard you ordering groceries and everything, man.
Well, hey, listen. You know what? We got to multitask. That's what us women do. I just want to share that.
No, I heard you. I'm coming over for some of that baked mac and cheese. Let's go. Let's get it.
You better stop with the collard greens and the smoked turkey.
Man,
hey,
listen, we not playing today. Let's go.
All right. So the next question, and I don't know about anybody else, but keep these questions going. This guy is on fire, folks. We need to capture it while we have him. So now Spencer Seabrook asks, what are your thoughts on the historical trauma which impacts people of color and perhaps a need to include more mental health support to these individuals?
Man, Spencer, you coming with that heat right now. That's heavy. That's heavy. You hitting them out the park. But let me tell you, when we talk about historical trauma, and we missed this part in Dr. I want to say Gurroy, post-traumatic stress. Let me look at my slip. Post-traumatic slave syndrome. If y'all haven't seen it, let me grab it. One of the best parts about being home, you could actually grab stuff off your shelf. Post-traumatic slave syndrome, right? She talks about the lack of healing. A lot of times they want us to get past the slavery. They want us to get past the historical trauma, but we can't get past that because in this country, we have not had an opportunity to heal. Right? So there has never been an attempt to try to address these issues. And through healing, comes acceptance, right? Somebody needs to say, yo, what happened was wrong, right? And yet we haven't seen that. We haven't felt that. So it's very hard for us to get through that. And then for the criminal justice system to reflect the slave system and be almost identical, the prisons looking like plantations and being run like plantations. Come on, man, how can we get past that? So we need to go through a sense of healing. And those of us that are in recovery, we need the whole system needs to be an informal recovery. And you know, I'm a 12-stepper, so they need to acknowledge the first step and be like, yo, y'all wrong, y'all powerless over this addiction, man. Let's go. Appreciate you, Spencer. I see you. You know, there was something yes, there's so many books, man. Y'all got this, man. I know they're never gonna invite me back because y'all got this chat box on fire. You know, I mean, we about to have a smoke detector go off in here. But you know, I really appreciate what Patricia Hernandez said, right, about the trauma-informed lens. We cannot speak enough, my people. We cannot talk enough about trauma-informed. We cannot underestimate the importance of trauma, because many of us, historical trauma, right? But that growing up in those violent environments and all that, many of us suffer from trauma that they're trying to treat as a mental health, they're trying to treat these things. But until we address the actual issues and peel the onion back, we'll know more and more about the people and the individuals that we're working with when we start to address trauma and understanding about trauma, even for employees, right? I'm a person that's a survivor of the criminal justice system, right? So if I'm at work and my boss is starting to interrogate me about something that happened at work, right? I'm starting to feel triggered because it feels like I am back in the police station. Oh, y'all don't know what I'm talking about, man. Yo, that's a whole different presentation. We're going to talk about how you can trigger people, right? Or you raise your voice at someone who has been in a domestic violence situation, and now you at work, or there's yelling. You might not even be yelling at that person. You might be yelling in another cubicle or something, and that triggers people. So we need to be able to, number one, as service providers and people that work in the field, to understand and recognize trauma, not only for the people that we service, but the people that we work with as well. Come on, man, let's go.
Absolutely. And so they shouldn't just be trauma informed, but they should also be trauma responsive. And it goes hand in hand. You know, a lot of times we have the knowledge, but if we don't put it into practice, then what are we doing here, right? We just got the knowledge, you know?
Absolutely. And remember where we come
without
from.
Works is dead.
Right. And remember where we come from, too, because some of us, you know, we get the titles and we get the letters and we get the things behind our name, but we forget the culture, right? Every once in a while, every agency needs an auntie. Let me say that again. Every agency needs an auntie. I need you to close the door and say, boy, is you out your mind? Is you out your mind? You know, these people will lock you up. You need to take advantage of these programs and do what you need to do. See, we need to be able to understand. And then those of us that don't come from that culture need to understand what's happening, because it's cultural. Because when we see the large population of individuals that are coming through the doors, we need people who understand the culture and speak the language.
That's right.
Just like you and I connected right off the rip. We already started talking, and that thing that happened, what happened was magical. See, that's a thing. That's a thing. And that's a professional relationship.
And you mentioned language. And let's talk about that for a minute, because I think that that's very important when people ask and talk about, well, what is it that I can do? Because everybody's not a service provider. Some people are volunteers. Some people are just coming into the know. Right? We know what happens, but really being informed. So when we talk about language and, you know, case management and treatment and rehabilitation and all of these buzzwords that, you know, we know have proven not to really work for our communities. What do you think about that? What say you, brother, about language?
Hey, while I answer that, I want you to check out Yolanda's question. I really appreciate her question in reference to about the bigger factor, Ms. Johnson. So one of the things is that, you know, that language is key, man. The language is key, but you know what? There's two things. It's twofold. When we come into these environments, we need to speak. Sometimes we got to be able to speak both languages, right? Because the funder, hold on now, the funder knows one language, right? but then our people or people that we're working with understand another. And sometimes we need to be able to navigate those worlds, right? I understand, like, so it's taken a long time for us to get people to understand what returning citizen even means, right? But the correctional system, the funder, the BJA still calls you an ex-offender. So what, you're not going to apply for that grant, right? You apply for the grant, you write in returning citizen, and they only know an ex-offender, you may not be able to get those resources. And we need to keep educating people and focusing on the importance thereof language, right? When we found through the research, right, through the personal research, when you call something case management, then that's what it is. We lose the fact of individuals. We lose the fact that that's a son, a brother, a mother, right? So everybody becomes a case. After 20 years, people burnt out. So you just become a case instead of an individual. So we need to get back to humanity, treating people as humans. I talk to social workers all over the country. And one of the things they say, well, Daryl, I never smoked crack. I never grew up in the projects. How do I work with these people? How about treating them as human beings? How about treating them as human beings? How about let's start there, right?
People first.
Absolutely. Can we talk about Yolanda talking about there's a bigger
Yeah, so I'm gonna bring up what she put. That's my great sis. That's actually my twin. You know, I'm the youngest one. Just wanted to share that. Yeah, I'm about
Let's be clear. Let's be clear.
Let's be clear. I'm about 20 years apart from my twin. I'm just saying. So she said, Daryl, and this, I think it's more of a statement than it is a question. She said there is a bigger factor. Some people don't care if we are triggered, right? They also have that, and they also have that we are not equal to them, right? Yeah. We can work, but not make the same salary, right? We can get degrees, but do not take or get the top position. So there is still a racial disparity.
100%. 100%. I worked in a lot of systems. I worked in the top system. I had the cherry wood furniture and everything. And all they told me was be cute because we need a black guy, right? But then when I was a little too black, they told me it was my last day. So, you know what I mean? But what I did was I was very fortunate and God had blessed me to start my own organization. And let me tell you about my own organization. Can't nobody ever tell me today's my last day. Right. So that's the only advice I can say. We need to partner up and, you know, stop asking for a seat at the table and build our own tables. That's the thing.
That's right. Come off the menu.
Yeah, we got to build on. We used to ask for a seat at the table. Now we got to bring wood and nails and stuff and build our own table. Now we own this table. Now we're good. Thank you. We good.
Well, that kind of goes in line with what my question is, and we got a couple of questions in the Q&A for you. So for you, brother, you know, in your presentation you put wealth gap, right? Yeah. And we know that wealth gap, the disparity in that is intentional, right? We know that's intentional. So what would you say to the community of folks, of directly impacted people with lived experience folks, on how can they navigate and circumvent? Because, you know, some knowledge is information. Some things we might not be able to change because that's just the nature of the beast. Yeah. But we can reconcile with it and either circumvent or navigate it. So through your personal experience in that, what would you say to this community on how to gain the mindset about being economically stable and building generational wealth from where they are?
Oh man, that's heavy. That's heavy. You hit me with like a bunch of questions, but let me say,
that's what I'm here for, bro.
I hear you. I see what you're doing. But let me flip it back to you. So check it. Interesting enough, I like that you said my personal experience. So I'm gonna give you that. Can I do that? Right?
Yeah, absolutely.
When I stopped smoking crack, they didn't stop selling crack. So I had to figure out how to navigate this world that's going to continue to sell crack and alcohol. I still had to live, right? So I tell my brothers and sisters, people that are in these environments that's still struggling, trying to swim, they're not going to change because we change. So what we have to do is identify and navigate the world that we have, right? They still sell crack. I just don't partake in that because I found something different. I found that, I found a new drug. And this new drug is more powerful. This new drug is me using my lived experience to help others. I told you, we're on a modern day underground railroad. We are pulling people out of darkness, right? That's my job. So I found this natural high, which is a challenge, right? Because we all struggle. We all got bills. We got to teach people how to work within those storms, right? And of course, man, I'll be remiss if I don't talk about God and how important God is to me in my life, in my faith,
All
right?
right.
So
Amen, brother.
told
Take
me
us to
that,
church.
listen,
Come on.
God has told me that I'm going to put you in some places and I need you to do this work, right? And you do this work, you're going to be taken care of. So that took me some time to do that. And just really quickly, I have to say that, Hartford Jail, West Wing 25 cell is where I found purpose by reading The Purpose-Driven Life, man. I read The Purpose-Driven Life, right? And it was a 40-day spiritual journey, right? And I was in this cell. Somebody slipped me the book. My court date was 41 days away. This is a 40-day spiritual journey. I said, oh, God must have sent this to me. So, but through that process, because a lot of people want the success, but they don't want to go through the process. Everything has a process, right? So I had to go through this process, and through that process, I found purpose. I encourage each and every one of us. I don't care if you broke. I don't care if you're a millionaire. If you don't find purpose, you have nothing. Come on, man. What we doing? What we doing?
I think that we definitely have another panel at 1:30.
They coming hot. They coming in hot. We had to set the stage.
We at 1:25. So I'm going to ask one more question, and I am.
Can we do two? Can we do two?
We could do two.
Christina says she doesn't like the term returning citizen. It feels excluding to immigrants and undocumented folk. Now, I don't know about that. And I think that that's why we need you, Christina, at the table. But we need to be able to distinguish why these individuals, because returning citizen, right? When I was in the hood and I was selling drugs, I wasn't a citizen. I wasn't part of that community. I wasn't returning to nothing, right? Now I am a homeowner. I want my neighbor to know I live here. My neighbor needs to know I live here in case something happens at my house. The police need to know I live here. Before, we were excluded from the community. So now I'm a returning citizen. I'm going to get my rightful respect. I am Mr. McGraw to police officers, to the mailman, and anybody that is not a personal friend of mine. I am a citizen in this city, and I would like to be respected in that space, right? So that that returning citizen, re-citizenship, re-entry, all of that I am part of the returning citizen. I am a returning citizen. I'm claiming ownership to that. I am claiming that. And it also gives you those that know I've been through something. When I identify as a person in recovery, that means I am a person that has been through something. So I demand respect. Because that means not only I've been on the substances, I've been through prison, I've been through all this stuff, and now I'm in this space trying to show others how to live. So we are demanding respect. When we throw that re on it, they talk about put some respect on my name, put that re on it so we could give them respect. And our immigrants and those people that you just mentioned are welcomed in that space too. They just need to know how to use the language.
All right. And there's a couple somebody brought up, as Eddie Ellis would say, people, and I think Sergio also said to use your own words, Daryl. We refer to them as people.
Peace to the brother Eddie Ellis, because we would not be here. So we got to say that because, see, those that came before us opened the door. And now I'm holding the door open for the next that are coming behind us. And I know we got another panel, so we're going to hold the door open for them to come through. Let's get it, man. Appreciate y'all. Thank you for the space.
Thank you again. And thank you, everyone, for coming out and listening to this wonderful, awesome person that we have before us. Our brother Daryl McGraw. Let's show him some love, because this was just really, I mean, he excited me. I'm in the work. I'm in the movement. And he just revitalized my energy in this because, you know, we all know that, you know, it does get a little tasking at times, but thank you so much, Daryl. You are definitely someone that we need to keep at the, not only the table, but to sit at his tables, right? That he's making and have him in these forums. So thank you everyone for joining us for this awesome segment.
Sharon, I just want to say I appreciate you for setting the table because without you, we couldn't have got it done like this. So I appreciate you, sister. And we just beginning. This is just the start.
Just beginning. Daryl, hit me up with your information.
I got you.
Because I got this, you know, we got to, connect.
Yeah, my team should be in there. My team should be able to throw that in the chat box. So, you know, we on Instagram, Harry Tubman 18. Follow your boy, Harry Tubman 18 on Instagram. I'm still using the platform for all my people. We're still using Facebook. We know young people don't use that, but feel free to breeze through and say hi. And we everywhere, man. We everywhere. And we this is family, so this is what we doing.